Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Good morning, Darwin.
Good morning to you, and happy June.
Yeah, happy June, that's right. Who knows what June's going to bring, right?
Well, that's a perfect line for my show because it's like, what is going to happen next when I pick up the newspaper or turn on the news? And in the old days, I went to dozens and dozens of Hollywood parties, on Broadway parties, and there were two topics of conversation. Who is sleeping with whom? And the second one is what Broadway show is being cast or what Hollywood film is being cast.
Life was simpler then, right?
Yes, but today it is who is going to get the axe next.
Right.
What film is going to be shut down.
Right.
What films in the can can't be released. And where am I going to get my next job?
Right.
And so it's I have never seen anything like this since the days of Joseph McCarthy in the early 50s when he went on the witch hunt, and many, many stars in Hollywood lost their jobs. Very famous people like Edward G. Robinson with accusations of being a communist. A lot of people were communists in the 1930s, in the depths of the Depression. Of course, one man tried to join the Communist Party in 1937, but was turned down for being too flaky.
Who is that?
His name was Ronald Reagan.
Oh, no! I love it.
Well, Ronald Reagan was a liberal for a very long time.
Thank goodness for his son, right?
Yeah. But now, of course, the latest casualty, and I don't want to just spend the whole show talking about her, I want to move on, is Roseanne Barr. I mean, this has made headlines all over the place. I'll tell you frankly, when I first saw Roseanne's show, I compared her to Carol O'Connor playing
exactly.
Archie Bunker.
All in the fun, all in the family. Exactly, yeah, I did also.
Carol O'Connor was an ardent liberal, and he was just pretending to be a bigot.
Right.
He wasn't at all. And I thought that originally this was Roseanne's shtick, that this was her thing, and it was all a put on. But apparently, she meant it.
I felt the same way. You know that, Darwin? I thought I was fighting someone. I said, "Oh no, she's just liberal. That's just what she's doing." Yeah, right.
Yes, but apparently she really means it. Now, I thought her career would have been destroyed before because, she tried to view it as humor, but I don't know if you ever saw it, but she dressed up like Adolf Hitler with a mustache. And
yeah, I saw it.
She was photographed pulling human-shaped burnt, what she called Jew cookies out of the oven. Now, what was ironic about that, Roseanne is Jewish herself. So, to me, that was more shocking than calling Valerie Jewett a descendant of an ape, I mean, that Hitler thing was just incredible. And, for example, she called David Hogg, the hero of the Portland, Florida massacre. She accused him of giving a Nazi salute, and he did not. David Hogg is a brilliant little 17-year-old. I think we spoke of him before, and he's about the least Nazi I've ever heard of. But there was one thing that she spoke about, Susan Rice, who is an African-American woman. She was Obama's national security advisor. Now, this line was published in newspapers across America. Roseanne accused Susan Rice of being a man with big swinging ape balls. I'm amazed. Back in the days I worked for the Miami Herald, we would not be allowed to use a line like that.
Yeah.
And the thing that saddens me, not so much of her comments, because we've come to expect them, is the people out of work. I mean, she's throwing right now 300 people out of work, you know, from
300?
carpenters.
Is that right?
Yeah, because so many people are involved in these shows, and I've heard that many turned down other jobs so they could work on this show. And, you know, they say now in Hollywood or on Broadway, for every job, there are at least 1,000 people applying. It's
Well,
the industry is just overloaded. You know, so many people want to be actors and are big stars, and look how few succeed, you know. So this is a real hardship on a lot of people.
but Darwin,
And
wait a
it's
minute,
not-
wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. Wasn't that always true, even in the older days of the movies and all? There were always too many people who wanted to be involved. That's common,
Oh,
isn't it?
that's been true since
Yeah.
the days of Shakespeare.
Right. Okay.
But now with the increase in population,
Mm.
there are obviously more people trying to get jobs than they were in 1928. You know, only because the population has exploded beyond belief in Hollywood itself.
I have to just throw something out, and now they're telling, and then I don't want to talk about Roseanne anymore. But after, I just want to tell you this. I just heard on a show they're blaming, as they always did, the poor Obamas, that Michelle Obama is responsible for Roseanne's being fired. Can you, they just really get that. I mean, they reach so far to get the poor Obamas, don't they?
Well, I think that should go under the category of when Roseanne accused Hillary Clinton of running this pizza restaurant in Washington that peddled child slaves for
Yeah,
sex.
I know.
But people believe that.
I know that.
I mean,
That's unfortunate. Yeah.
But now, okay, I don't want to say this is not just the entertainment industry. All sorts of people are being taken down. Only two papers really in New York and Los Angeles report all of them, because the most national newspapers only report the famous ones. But, for example, the Daily News in one issue, I've never seen anything like it. It had 8 stories about people, from the ballet, the symphony orchestra, a high school principal. All these people were being taken down in New York because of sexual harassment. And I think, to me, one of the really shocking revelations is 4 very famous newsmen. I'm not equating them with the level of Walter Cronkite, but they were all taken. Charlie Rose,
Right.
Matt Lauer, Tom Brokaw, and Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly on Fox he had the largest following of anybody, but what was so extraordinary is he paid a woman that accused him of sexual harassment $32 million. I mean, that must be the all-time settlement. Well, she's fixed up now for life, isn't she?
Yeah, well,
32.
I think maybe, I just wondered, what if we didn't have the internet, or heaven forbid, take away the radio and the TV? What would all these people be doing? I mean, they just would have to sit in their house. We wouldn't know anything. We'd be back to the cave days and just eat our food.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. That almost leads into a point I wanted to make. In the past, the sexual harassment has destroyed some people, but some people have escaped. Let me give you a couple of examples. Ronald Reagan, here we go again. He twice has been accused of rape. One was in 1947 when he was head of the Screen Actors Guild, and a woman signed up, and then she later testified that he came to her apartment at 1 o'clock, and she was already in bed, and he forced his way in and raped her. And another occurred in Sacramento when he was governor, and a woman claimed that he raped her. And when she was visiting the governor's mansion, Nancy was out of town. You wouldn't want to confront Nancy Reagan. Now, oddly enough, reporters converged on Reagan that following Sunday when he was going into church in Washington with Nancy. And they said, "Did you rape this woman? Did you rape this woman, Mr. President?" And he just sort of walked on by and pretended it wasn't happening. And whereas other presidents, like we all know what happened with Bill Clinton. So there was an amusing one that I've never heard anyone talk about, so I'll mention it on this broadcast. I used to take out Joan Fontaine, the Oscar-winning actress and sister of Olivia de Havilland, and she told me that Hubert Humphrey sexually harassed her on many occasions. Hubert Humphrey. Now, we all remember, some of us were alive, he was Lyndon Johnson's vice president, and he ran on the Democratic nominee for president.
And he was a real, very big liberal, too. Very big, yep.
Yes, but I'll tell you, I believe Joan Fontaine, I don't think, made up stories like that. But that one surprised me. See, meaning you never know who's going to get charged. For example, on several occasions I met Dustin Hoffman. My best friend wrote a book called Midnight Cowboy.
Oh, yeah, a wonderful book.
Yeah, it was made into a movie with Dustin Hoffman and John Boyd, both of whom were nominated for Oscars. And Hurley and I visited the set many times. Dustin Hoffman would be about the last person I would think that would sexually harass anyone. But now the story is out, and it just goes on and on. Now, Harvey Weinstein, as a producer, he started this. And you and I, you may remember, we once did a show on Ronan Farrow.
Oh, yes, I love that, and I love him.
And he's a wonderful man. He just won the Pulitzer Prize.
I saw that, yes.
For his investigation. And Anderson Cooper had him on and talking about the Weinstein investigation. And then at the end of the show, Anderson said to Ronan, he said, "Now maybe someday you'll come on and we'll talk about your father." Now, as you may remember on our show, the speculation is that Frank Sinatra was his father. In Vanity Fair, Mia Farrow, almost 99% admitted that. She held out the possibility that maybe not. Although married to Frankie in the 60s, they were divorced, but over a period of time, they continued their sexual relationship. So I'll tell you, his blue eyes sure look more like old Blue Eyes himself.
Right.
Than,
yeah.
But it was his investigation of Harvey Weinstein that set off this thing. Now, as far as Harvey goes, and he's under indictment, and we don't know how that's going to play out, but he's following in a tradition of famous producers who routinely put their stars on the casting couch. I'll just name three: Harry Cohn of Columbia, Darryl F. Zanuck of Fox, Louis B. Mayer of MGM, and Joan Crawford once commented on the casting couch. She said, "Yes, in the 20s, I lay on many a casting couch, and it sure beat the hell out of the cold, damp floor." But it's now a different time, a different era, and I don't think many women in Hollywood would adopt Joan's very cavalier attitude. It's a different time, with the Me Too movement. Now, sometimes...
Wait, excuse me. Wait. I know this is raucous, but I have to say it. Do you remember, was it Bobbitt? Who was it who cut off her husband's penis?
Oh, yes.
Bobbitt. Now, why didn't these women do something terrible when he, tried to do these things? Why were they so submissive?
Well, that Bobbitt, that Lorena Bobbitt. But fortunately, and then she took it and threw it in a field.
I know. Then he had to find it.
And then he got it sewed back on.
No.
I didn't know they could do something like that. I mean, I'd never heard of such a story. You know, he later became a porn star.
Of course, right. That's right. Well, they have all mechanical things that will help, but
Well, everybody wanted to take a look, but that's carrying the Me Too movement a little bit far, I think, and we don't recommend that at all.
yeah.
Now, some people when Arnold Schwarzenegger ran for governor of California and won, all the charges of sexual harassment were leveled against him, and basically they were true because there's almost photographic evidence. But he seemed to escape. Now, he might not have escaped today because the Me Too movement seems to be getting very, very serious. And it's, for example, I almost couldn't believe it, but all these charges are being leveled against that wonderful character actor, Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, that was very sad. I love Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, he's very good. And I think Disney owns 2 films still in the can. That means in Hollywood parlance that they haven't been released. And so Disney's a little worried about that. Kevin Spacey, who did the, brilliant actor.
Yes.
I loved his House of Cards series. His career is just on hold. And I don't know if Mel Gibson made all those anti-Semitic remarks.
I don't want to watch him ever again anymore.
But he sort of had a minor comeback. Of course, he's older now and will not be what he was. But moving on, though, from the entertainment, the largest settlements, though, on sexual abuse and harassment are really being paid by the Catholic Church. Only 2 days ago, the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis declared bankruptcy, and they are trying to set up a $210 million trust fund for 450 children, mostly boys, hoping to benefit. The largest settlement that I've ever heard of was in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. They paid out $660 million.
Really?
To settle. Oh my God! To settle these abuse claims. But the biggest a change that I've just heard about came about in Minnesota, where the legislature has passed this Child Victim Act, and it lists the statute of limitation on child abuse cases, because so many of these cases, like some of those being brought today, they go way back and they didn't fit. They are invalid now because the statute of limit. You have to bring the charges depending on the state. Some states say you have to bring charges. You can't wait more than 7 years, but they want to remove the limitations. They've already done that in Minnesota, and that means you say a boy who was abused by a priest when he was 13 can, from in the 50s, now in late middle age, he can bring charges. But we'll see how that plays out in the nation. And of course, Pope Francis has spoken out on many, many times. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, it affects all walks of life. It's not just in the entertainment business, because, many sports figures have been brought down. And I think there will also be, like everything that happens, there will be many abuses. When people hear that Bill O'Reilly is paying out $32 million for not a rape, but for a sexual harassment, I think there may be other cases. Some people are already saying, well, back in 1970, I was sexually harassed. And they probably were. But it shouldn't. I feel a little sad that it's putting so many people out of work and also destroying the careers of some of our most talented people. Of course, you could say naughty behavior should not be rewarded. And the most serious charges, and he's already been convicted, were by Bill Cosby. Now, he was America's dad. I was told by someone on the New York Times, I used to know the obit editor, that they had a wonderful obit. You know, they prepare obits on people that they think are going to die. The two Hollywood stars approaching 102, they already have their obits ready to run in case Olivia de Havilland and Kirk Douglas die shortly before the deadline at midnight on the Times. And the Bill Cosby had a wonderful obit about his being America's dad and being beloved. And now his obit will lead off with the sexual harassment charges. But that makes sense. I mean, meaning that has overpowered a wonderful reputation he had. The difference between Bill Cosby and some of these other people is that he doped and raped. There's been 60 charges brought against him, and basically the same charge. So doping and raping is different. Now, Matt Damon really got into trouble. I like Matt Damon. I think he's a very good actor. But he made a statement that all hell broke loose. He said, aggressive flirtation should not be the same as rape. And maybe a judge would agree with that. Rape is a very serious charge. Aggressive flirtation is bad behavior, but not necessarily life imprisonment. I couldn't believe the hostile reaction. In other words, you better be careful when you give an opinion.
You know, Darwin, I love for you to talk, but I do have to ask a question. I've asked this of other men, you know, especially men who are very attractive. Why do they have to do that? I don't really understand why. What's in their brain? Why wouldn't they feel that they're not worthy if they have to do something like that? Would you explain that to me?
I have never been able to explain that, and I don't understand. For example, Ben Affleck still is one of the handsomest, most charismatic, and charming men in Hollywood. I mean, I have been around movie stars most of my life, and they're often surrounded by women. I'll give you an example of one. His name is Donald Trump.
Oh my God, I hate to go there, but go ahead.
I used to go into Maxwell's Plum in the 70s, and that's where that was a very hot pickup bar in New York, the scene of a lot of the action. And he would walk in the door. You know, he was fairly good looking, believe it or not. And God, you turn around and almost 7 women would be around him. And that's the same with movie stars. I mean, they get offer after offer. Could you imagine Elvis Presley wanting a date?
Yeah, no, that's my point. So why then, if someone is so willing, why do they have to then go at it in a different way? Why don't they just accept, the ones who want it and the ones that don't walk away? I mean, what is this?
It is so easy for them to, we're being euphemistic, find a date.
Right.
Maybe an all-night date. And why the only thing that I've come close to getting an answer, I forgot who he was now. Someone told me, well, I like the chase. I don't like a conquest if it's too easy. Okay, that's a possible answer, meaning you bring out the aggression in a man, whereas you've got a willing victim. Let's go back to your hotel room. Then maybe these men don't consider that much fun. But I know that didn't really answer your question. But
no, it's okay. I guess it is a psychological situation that somehow happened when they were either young as boys or something. But and let's face it, there are women, of course, who do ask for things that are not right, and they do things that are wrong too. But they should be more careful. But when that man really, like some of the ones who have just over and over and over again, I mean, they're just insane. I think they just have such a mental problem. They don't belong in jail. They belong in a mental institution to help them. Yeah. That's it.
Well, we're going to see day by day how this plays out in America, but certainly this is not the world that I went to in Miami High School and the University
Right.
of Miami.
You
In
know,
fact,
it's all
some of the
about, Darwin, it's all about sex when you think about it. Isn't it funny that sex, no matter what century goes on, whether it was back in the ancients or today, it's all about sex.
It really is, and but now men, Hollywood actors particularly, are going to have to be very, very careful when they arrive at a party. Leonardo DiCaprio, a well-known womanizer, now arrives at parties with 4 men around him. so, so that is his answer to the Me Too. Have security guards. Okay. I think my
Okay,
time is
Darwin,
up.
I'd love having you on the show, and I'd love to be able to see you again very soon. You know, I've missed both of you so much, but
Oh, I have too. And
okay, we'll have to arrange that.
We do manage to make some revelations that none of your other guests.
I
will
know
probably
you're
come.
it. You're my best. So thank you and love to you. Bye.
Thank you. Much love.